Welcome to another Talk with Toni. Earlier this week I was in Harvey with Joe Dominguez and Commonwealth Edison staff to talk about the terrible storm we had earlier in August that left the Harvey community without power for almost a week. We're going to see, as a result of climate change, increasing severity of our storms and more flooding. These are going to be real challenges to all of our communities, especially underserved communities and communities of color. And government, as a result, should be taking a lead in trying to impact climate change. And that's why I challenged my team to create a plan that addresses its causes and provides a roadmap for solutions. Today I have two Cook County staff with me to talk a little bit about climate change. Jamie Meyers is Energy Manager of the Cook County Bureau of Asset Management, BAM, and Deborah Stone is Director of the Cook County Department of Environment and Sustainability. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to ask you, Deb, to talk about what on earth is sustainability?
Sustainability, to me, means using resources at a rate that future generations can benefit just as much as we can. It's taking the long view, and it's also taking the broad view. It means everybody needs to have a share of those resources.
So when I was a history teacher, in the Iroquois Nation, if you were a leader, you were supposed to be planning for the next 7 generations, right? It's too bad we don't have that. A more general approach in non-native communities. But anyway, so we want to be sure, in other words, that the earth that we leave to our children is better than the one that we inherited. What's that expression? You don't. You don't. What's the word? You don't inherit the earth. You bequeath it to your children, or something like that. And we need to be very careful about what we're bequeathing to our children. So that's sustainability. We've got a clean energy plan. How does that relate to sustainability?
So the plan sets out how the county really can walk the walk. We want to talk about climate change. We want to talk about making the earth better. But we think the first step is really to take a look at our own house, which for the county means our courthouses, our hospitals, our office buildings downtown, and make sure that we are operating our own house in a way that lives up to the principles that we're espousing. So the plan really sets out how the county is going to meet 3 goals that you've laid out for the staff to follow.
Okay, and what are those goals?
So the first goal is we want to reduce our harmful climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions from county facilities by 45% by the year 2030.
So that's basically carbon dioxide?
It's mostly carbon dioxide. There's a few other things involved, but you can think of it as carbon dioxide, yeah.
Okay, so we're reducing our emissions.
So that's a pretty steep lift, but you know that under your leadership, we've already made a 1/3 reduction in the GHG greenhouse gas emissions from our facilities since you came into office.
So in 10 years?
In 10 years, a little less than 10 years. And by the way, we saved Cook County taxpayers about $33 million on their utility bills in that time as well.
The county utility bills.
County utility bills. The second goal that you set out for us to meet was by 2030, you also want us to be using 100% clean renewable electricity. So that means we either install or procure low carbon resources like maybe wind energy or solar energy to cover 100% of what we're using.
Okay, so we're principally reliant now, I suppose, on natural gas rather than coal and oil, and we're converting to wind and solar.
Absolutely. And because we draw electricity off the grid, a lot of what we use is also nuclear, but we want to get cleaner at a faster rate than just the general grid is doing.
Okay, and how are we going to do
that? The plan, which I think maybe we could turn to Jamie to talk about.
Oh, good. All right, so this is Jamie's job.
Yes. So this is,
All right,
this
Jamie.
is my job.
All right, good.
Hi, President Preckwinkle. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
We looked comprehensively at our portfolio. So it's about 19 million square feet, about 176 different buildings. And we tried to figure out what was the best way to do this. And we kind of have a saying that the least or cleanest unit of energy is the one that's not used. So this plan really focuses on reducing our energy usage. It's broken into 4 sections.
Just a second.
Reduce-
So the best way to be a responsible entity, whether it's a human being or a government agency or a corporation, is to just use less energy.
Yes. Yeah, because to meet the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, which is the third goal that you set for us, you have your emissions, so the energy you're using over here, and then you create enough clean energy to balance the two. And so you're neutral. So if you think of it as a scale and you're trying to balance the scale, the more you take off of your usage, the less you have to put on your renewable energy to make it balanced. And that's what our goal is, to be balanced by 2050. So the plan has a section on reducing, maintaining, because once you reduce energy, it's very easy to start using
Creeping
energy,
back up.
creeping back up. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. The third section is renew, and that's the clean energy that we start to add. And the final section is support, and those are different policies and procedures that we think will help us meet this goal.
What are they?
So the first big one that we did was we created a set of green building standards. So, our capital improvement plan has about 350 projects per year, and there's only 2 or 3
Capital
of us.
improvements. I'd remind people what that is.
Sure. So the capital improvements are remodeling facilities, addressing code concerns, basically trying to create facilities that better serve the taxpayers of Cook County.
Right. It's not mostly new construction, although it's occasionally new construction.
Occasionally new construction.
It's mostly a renovation and rehabilitation of existing facilities and maintenance of facilities.
Correct. And so all of those projects, and some of them are real small, they're, maybe remodeling one office or something, to as big as, potentially remodeling a whole floor of a building. So in order to keep track of all of that and make sure that they're all moving in the same direction as far as reducing energy usage, we've created green building standards. And so architects and engineers, when they're creating the plans for these projects, will use these standards, and they set a lot of performance goals, which means that we want them to meet a certain level of energy efficiency performance. That way we can make sure all of our projects are moving in the right direction.
Okay, so we set metrics. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Performance metrics.
Yes. So one of the ways that we measure performance of a building is called energy use intensity. It's EUI. And so what that says is that per square foot, you're going to use X amount of energy. So what we do is we really push the boundaries of what EUI we will accept when it comes to remodeling a floor. We'll also look at, so the juvenile detention center right now is getting new lighting. So we've put together specifications that say that your lighting has to be this efficient before it goes in. That way we know that we're going to get the most amount of savings in both energy as well as cost savings. And so by putting those metrics on different things in the building, we can overall keep reducing our energy usage.
How do you hold people accountable so that we don't have this sort of, creeping increase in energy usage?
We include them in these discussions.
Okay.
I'm an architect by training, and one of the things that we talk about is integrative design. And
What does that mean?
so what that means is that when you sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper the first time to, say, design a building, you have all the users of that building with you, or representatives. So you have people that are going to be using the building. You have people that are maintaining the building. You have potentially investors in the building. And what you want to do is you want to bring those people to the table, because they need to know what you're going to do so that your design, when it actually becomes reality, operates the way that you want it to. So what we do is we start to engage our building engineers. We just had a meeting with a building engineer, ComEd, and a consultant, and we looked at our energy profile in this building. And we had a discussion with them about operating schedules, some changes that could be made. And the building engineer went through, made some changes, and if those changes hold out, it's going to save us 2 million kilowatt hours in the next year, which is a little over 1% of our total footprint.
So what did the building engineer recommend?
So what we found is that there were certain systems in the building that weren't getting turned off in time. So what happens is about 7 o'clock at night, all the air handling units, so those are the units that distribute the warm or cool air depending on the season, they will be shut down. And so by shutting those down, we don't get the fans that distribute that air are no longer running. And so we found the energy savings from there. We've also looked at making sure lighting is being turned off at the right time. And so far, it's working. It's only about a month in,
Okay.
But we're able to hold those savings. And the really nice thing is that because he went through and looked at all these different systems, he identified other areas where we could save energy and make additional capital improvements to reduce energy even further in the future.
Okay, simply by engaging the building engineer, we were able to achieve pretty significant savings.
Yes. And so that's kind of our approach, is making sure that everybody's on board with what we're doing, so that it's not just us running around over here trying to save energy while other people over here are
Everybody else is doing their thing.
doing their thing, which is sometimes easy, sometimes hard, but it's what makes it fun.
Okay. All right, Deb, how does our clean energy plan fit into our broader sustainability efforts?
So I really want to talk about two things. One is science and one is fairness, really. You set these goals to the staff saying, see if you think we can meet them, and we can, actually much easier than we thought we could by a lot of these common sense actions that Jamie's talking about.
Right.
And you set us down that path because we took seriously the findings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which recently came out with findings that said, hey, look, climate change is happening a lot faster than we thought, and its effects are more serious than we thought. And as you've set forward for your administration a focus on everything we do on racial equity, we need to keep in mind that climate change in Cook County is going to hit poor communities, minority communities, under-resourced communities harder. Those are places where you find more flooding, which is a hallmark of climate change impacts in our region. You're going to find more hot spots or heat islands. You released this plan on the anniversary of the 1995 heat wave in Chicago, which killed over 700 people.
Yeah, almost 800 people.
And, unfortunately, events like that are going to become more common. They're almost going to become the norm. And we really need to take climate change seriously. We need to be a leader. Government can step up and be a leader. We can show others how to do it. We can show them that it's not necessarily something that's beyond the reach.
Right.
That really what goes into it are a lot of common sense actions that add up together. And we think we need to tell that story, and so that's why we're releasing the plan, so that we can lay out that story.
All right, well, I'm very grateful for the good work that has been done by the Department of the Environment and Bureau of Asset Management on this subject. You have any kind of final words for us, Jimmy?
No, I just thank you for this opportunity. Like Deb said, on paper, seems rather simple, makes a lot of sense. It is a lot of common sense decisions. I know the execution will be a challenge, but I get excited every day I think about it. Trying to figure out how to get us there. It's like a giant puzzle, and we've got a couple pieces in place, and we're just going to keep adding to it. Eventually, it'll be a very pretty picture when we're done.
Okay, all right. Deb?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank you for your leadership in getting us as far down the road as we are already, having reduced our greenhouse gas emissions over a third already. If we were trying to meet the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's goals of 45% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050, starting from zero, that would be incredibly daunting. But we've made a lot of progress already, and that's critical to our confidence that we're going to be able to meet those goals.
All right, well, Deb Stone and Jamie, we're grateful to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
thank you for joining us with Talk with Toni.